Hello class again, and welcome to this particular video which involves chapter 2, net income and purchasing power. And these two, they go hand in hand in a way, and we're going to know various different terminologies that are applicable to this particular chapter and what it means when you actually get a paycheck or when a payday arrives, and then you look at your pay stub and you see some various interesting money or units taken away or added to your gross pay. Now we're going to see what it means to actually have your gross pay actually established, and then we're going to move into deductions, which is actually taken away from your gross pay, either in the form of a CPP, which is your Canadian pension plan, or you actually have your EI, which is actually your employment insurance, or you actually have your income tax, which is divided into two: your federal, which is pretty much from Canada.ca, or provincial income tax, which is pretty much in our province, Ontario. And all these here, which are the deductions, they actually approximate to between 0% to 30% of your specific gross income. And in here, what we notice is that, let's say for example, we have our gross income, which is will represent as G. G is this particular circle right here, and this circle is divided into different sections. And let's start from the center of this particular circle. We take a little piece of this particular pie, and this piece of this pie here is actually going to be labeled as D. So all this area here is pretty much what is taken away from your gross pay, which is either weekly or bi-weekly or semi-monthly pay that you get and or you actually put into your job. And once that percentage is taken away, let's look at D and see what D actually contains in there. So if you look at D here, which is the deduction, contains A, which is our CPP, and some percentage of your deduction is coming from the employment insurance, which is B, and some percentage is taken from the deduction by the federal income tax, and another one is actually coming from the province, which is represented as D. A is noticed here, B is noticed here, C is this, and that is D. Now, how about the remaining part of your gross income, which is all this remaining space right here? This remaining space is actually known as the net pay. So this is how much that actually is deposited into your bank account, and this is also called the take home pay. So in that case, once you have a take home pay, then you can actually spend that money. You can spend it in terms of personal expenses, like essential expenses, which means the things that are really important to you, like rent or food or clothing. And when we look at non-essential, it means that things that you don't really need at that particular point. Like for example, in these terms of the outbreak that we have, we don't really need to spend money on non-essential expenses like entertainment and so on. And then we have another type of expenses which are called fixed, money that doesn't change. Like for example, we have rent is always constant, and some other things as follows, like car payments, that is actually a fixed expense. However, variable is expenses are those that actually changes depending on seasons. Like for example, clothing could be a variable expense, or gas that you use to for your car, that is actually a variable expense. And now purchasing power. What does purchasing power mean here? Purchasing power tells you that it depends mainly on the income or the net pay and how well you spend that particular money. The more net pay you have and or how much is left to do other things like buy a car, that actually improves your purchasing power. And we're going to look at different examples in this particular lesson right here. So in here, don't forget that the n, which is this remaining portion of this our circle, I'll just draw the remaining circle. This contains R, E, F, G, H, and all those are showing how flexible that you are in terms of spending your money. And also don't forget that you have to save as well. So let's look at various questions and see how to actually approach them in terms of the gross income, deductions, net income, expenses, and purchasing power. So number 1 and 2. Looking at number 1, we are asked to describe the relationship between gross pay, net pay, and deductions. So you're going to write a mathematical equation, or you can use words. To make it simple, because it's math, we're just going to make a mathematical equation. We know here that the gross pay is the combination of your, in this case, net pay and your deduction. So in this case, if you add your net income and your deduction, that is equal to your gross pay. So in here, if we want to find our net income, which is represented as N, we are going to subtract our deduction from our gross pay in order for we to actually get our net pay, which is also called a take home, which is right here, take home pay. So that is it for a mathematical equation that expresses the relationship between gross pay, which is G, net pay, which is represented as N, and deduction, which is represented as D. So number 2 says that we should list fully all the 4 major deductions from an employee's gross income. So like what we talked about on our first 5 minutes of this video, we know first the Canadian pension plan, that is one. This one actually is usually is a contribution usually, and it's around 5.25% of your annual income, so, or your weekly income. So 5.25% of your weekly income actually, or gross income, goes into this particular plan. And this is as of 2020, so you need to keep this in mind. It changes every year, and this year is actually 5.25% of your gross income that goes into this particular plan. Now the next one is your employment insurance, and this employment insurance here is actually, for this year, is around 1.58% of your gross income, and this is actually contributed either weekly or bi-weekly, or it depends on how your employer pays you. So 1.58% of your gross income goes into that particular insurance plan, and this is actually one of them. And the other 2 are federal income tax, which is a type of an income tax, and the other one here is the provincial income tax. And these 2 here, you usually look at the tax bracket that you are under. So if you make between, let's say, $200 and $300, then you actually look at the claim column, or claim code column 1. So claim code column 1 tells you how much is taken away either by the federal government and the provincial government. So that amount is deducted from your gross income, and the combination of these 4 actually is known to be your D, which is the deduction, and that is where that is applied in here to your gross income by removing a part of your gross income to give you your net pay or your take home pay. So this is around pretty much, I would say, 0% to 30% of your gross income that's usually taken away, and this actually increases in percentage relative to your income, that is your gross income. So the higher your gross income, the more percentage is actually taken away from it in order for you to get your net pay at the end. So that is it for number 1 and number 2. And now number 3 says here that this particular person has a gross income, which is G to be around $880. So this is every 2 weeks, so it's a bi-weekly state. Now this person's net income, which is N here, is around $700. So in here you're asked to find the percent of the gross income that is actually taken home. So it means here that you're finding how much of that gross income in terms of the percentage is actually the net income. So in here we know that N, which is the net income, is equal to $700, and in here we know that the gross income is around $880. So therefore, if you want to find the percentage of the of the gross income that is the net income, in here what you have to do is divide your net amount in dollars by your gross, which is the total income, and then you multiply your answer by 100. Therefore, if you put down $700 divided by $880, multiply your answer by 100%, that is going to give you your percentage of your gross income, that is the net income, which is in this case around 79.5%. So 75.9% of your gross income is actually a take-home pay, which means that on your bank account, if you work for like 2 weeks and you earn $880 for that 2 weeks, only 79.5% of that money goes into your account, which in this case, according to our question, is actually $700 actually goes into the bank account. So that is it for number 3, which shows the relationship in percentage between the gross income and the net income. Now, how about you're given questions like this, like for example, completely the table. So in here I'm going to do A, and I'm going to encourage you to try to solve B and C yourselves. So for A, we look at here, we have the first column which says the annual earning. So the annual earning, and we're asked to find what is the earnings per pay weekly. So we know that weekly means that our annual earnings, we're going to divide that value, which is column 1, by 52, because we have 52 weeks in a year, which means that you will get paid 52 times. In here, once you divide $14,000 by 52, you're going to get 269.23. Now the next column says that what is the earnings bi-weekly. So if it's bi-weekly, we know that since it is 1 year, which is 52 weeks, we divide 52 by 2, we get 26, which means our annual earnings, we're going to divide that by 26, because you get paid 26 times. As a result of that, Our answer here will give us 538.46. And then in here for semi-monthly, we know that you're getting paid twice in a month. Since it's twice in a month, if it's in a year, you'll be getting paid 2 times 12, because we have 12 months in a year. So if you multiply 2 by 12, that gives you 24. So it means that you get paid 24 times. So you're dividing your annual earnings by 24, and what you get as your answer here is equal to $583.33, or $583.33. And finally, if you're paid per month, which means that in a year you get paid 12 times, that means you're dividing your annual pay by 12, which gives you, in this case, to be 1,166.67, or $1,166.67. So that is it for this particular A. So I implore you to actually solve B, divide for your second column. You divide your annual by 52. You divide the third column, annual, by 26, and for the fourth column you divide your annual by 24, and for the last column here you divide your annual by 12. So once you do that, I'll just write it here. You do the same strategy for 1.2 million, and in here you're going to apply that strategy for $26,800. So now for number 5 here, we're asked here now to apply what we know, which is the relationship between gross income, net, and deduction. So we need to be aware that the gross income is a combination, always remember that, is a combination of your net and your deduction, which means here that if I want to find my net, I'm going to subtract my deduction from the gross income. So now we know this, we're going to apply this important formula in this particular question here. So in here we're asked that the annual wage, let's just say as of 2011, the annual wage is $10.25. So if the annual wage per hour is $10.25 as of 2011, if you multiply that number by 20, which is number of hours per week, you're going to get your weekly earning, which gives you, I'll just do this, hour wage times hours per week. This will be equal to your weekly earnings, and this here gives you $205. So once you're able to determine that, or you can just make this to be your A and make this to be your B, that means here that this here, which is a weekly earning, is equal to your gross income, because this is the income that you made for that week alone. So the gross weekly income is equal to A times B, and once you do that, then you're going to get that answer right there. Now the next question it says is that you should find the approximate deduction. Now the approximate deduction, let's say, is 9% or 9. Let's just make this here D. Deduction for column 1 is, let's say we make that to be 9.75% of your gross, which is G. So which means here that because 205 is under a specific wage bracket, that wage bracket, if you combine the percentage of your CPP, your EI, your income tax, the combination of all those percentage just gives us 9.7% of the total gross income. So if you apply 9.75% or you change your 9.75% to decimal, it will become 0.095. Multiply that by your gross income for that week, which is around $205. That will give you your deduction for that particular minimum wage worker that worked 20 hours in a week. So in here, the percentage is going to be around $20. So once it's $20 that you found for your deduction, what you're going to do now is to find your net earnings. And what do you know about your net earnings? Net is net pay. So to find your net pay, you subtract your deduction amount in dollars from the gross income. So it means that it will be this column, the third column, minus the fourth column, which gives you your answer right here. So weekly earnings, which is gross, minus deduction here, will be equal to N, and the answer here will be 185. That is it right there. So for B, I want you to make your, let's say for deduction B, I want the percentage to be approximately, let's say 17%, or let's say 17.73%, and I want you to tell me how much is the deduction when you apply 17.73% of the gross income to this column right here. So what is BD? And from there, I want you to tell me what the deduction is and what is the net income. And for C, which is DC, let's say we have the percentage to be around 24.31% of the gross income. So apply this percentage of the gross income to tell us what the deduction is, and from that tell me what the net income is after you determine the gross pay. So this is for C, D, and that is it. So this is CG. Eraser, change this to G because it is for gross. So this here is G. Okay, yes, there we go. B, G, and C. There we go. And now for number 6 here is, what if you're giving other forms of deductions? Like for example, what are the other things that could be deducted from your gross income outside of the big four? The big four, like we talked about, are the employment insurance. We talked also about the CPP, which is the Canada pension plan. We also have the federal income tax, and finally we have the provincial tax. So what else? What are other 5 things that could be deducted? So if you look, sometimes you could have like additional pension that could be taken away from your gross income depending on what occupation you are in. Others might include unions, like for example teachers. We have our unions and they take some stuff away from our specific gross income. Now another one is if you're in a specific charity organization and you're contributing to a particular charitable organization. So any form of donation that actually you are under could actually influence your deduction by it's been taken away from your gross income. Now another one could be your Canada saving bonds. So I'll just write that here, Canada savings bond is another one that influences your net income. Another one is RRSP, which means the registered retirement savings plan, and this here is another contribution that is actually going to be taken away from your gross income, which means you'll have a less net income coming in, and other form of benefits that could be added or included into your deductions, thereby decreasing your net income. And that is actually all the types of deductions that are available outside of the big four that we talked about. And finally, here we're going to look at an application where we're going to check out how expenses and purchasing power influences choices that you make in terms of your net income. So in here we have this particular person here is in grade 12, and works weekends and after school as a cashier in a dollar store. She actually earns this amount per hour and works an average of 30 hours per week. So right away we know what the gross income is. The gross income is a multiplication of our hourly rate, which is $11.25, by our 30 hours which the person collected per week. So if you multiply those two numbers, you're going to get your answer to be 50, which is $337.50, which is our gross income, which is G. So now we know what G is. The next question here is to approximate this person's weekly net income, and we're going to round this also to the nearest dollar. So which means here that if we have a deductions, we'll say that this person's gross income is under a bracket that has the deduction percentage to be, we'll make the percent to be equal to 11%. So if the person is under the deduction bracket of 11%, this means here that if I multiply my gross income, which is $337.50, by 11%, or if you change 11% to decimal, that is 0.11. This here will give us the deduction amount in dollars that is taken away from the gross income. So the amount that will be taken away from your gross income here is around $37.07. So therefore, to find the net income, we know that we have to subtract our deduction from the gross, and we know that the gross here is here, which is $337.50, and this is minus $37.07. So this here will be equal to our net income N, which is around approximately $300. So keep this in mind. First, you need to know the percentage of the deduction that is taken off that particular gross income, which is what we found here, and then we found the net income by subtracting our deduction from the gross income, which is in this case $300. So this person in the bank account will see $300, not $337.50. The person will not see this. The person will see this money in her bank account. So now we have this amount actually put in this person's bank account. We know now that dealing with expenses, one expenses that is actually included in this person's budget is the payment to her mother, which is $100 per week to help with expenses. And this person additional expenses for herself alone is $50 per week. Next one here is $80 per month. Keep this in mind, because if it's in a month, it means that we have to convert this to how much per week does this person contribute, which means I'm going to divide this by 4. And then the next one is $20 per week for gasoline, and the next here is saving $60 per month. This is monthly, so we'll have to change this to per week, which means we're going to divide the amount of money by 4 to get the weekly amount. So if we divide $80 for the insurance by 4, you're going to get $20 per week that this person actually pays for insurance for driving her mom's car. And then the other one here, which is for gifts here, if we divide 60 by 4, we actually get $15 that is saved for that particular gift. So in here, there is a little bit of a condition that this person wants to save the rest of her remaining net income so that she can buy a car. So the big question here is, will this person want to now, if the person wants to save $3,000 for the by next year, which means that after 52 weeks, right, the person wants to save a total of $3,000. Sorry, is it possible for the person to save $3,000 in the next 52 weeks to buy the car after all these deductions are, sorry, no, not deductions, all these expenses here are actually made weekly by that particular person right here? So in here, what you can do is, first off, add all the expenses together. So in here we have the first expenses, which is $100 per week. So if we add $100, which is right here, that is check. Then the next one is $50 per week. That is good. And then we add not $80 but $20, which is right there. So we add $20 by per week. And this next one here is $60, not $60 but $15. $15 plus finally we have $20 per week for gasoline. So all these here are her expenses that she's going to spend when she gets paid $300 in 1 week. So don't forget, this is a weekly pay that goes into her bank account. So if you add all these numbers together, what that gives us is around 100 plus 50 plus these are 70. This is 9. Okay, this is $195. $195. And since we have $195 and this here is her expenses, that means now that if she gets her pay to be $300 and we subtract this number from her expenses, we're going to know how much she's going to have left after all these expenses are actually accounted for. So in here, what is left is $95. does that add up? Let me see the calculator to see. So calculator, we have 100 plus 50 plus 20 plus 15 plus 20. That gives us, sorry, not 195. Her expenses is actually 205. So I made a mistake here. So in here we have $205. That is for her expenses for 1 week. So it means here that if we subtract 205 from her net income, which is $300 that she earns per week, it means that in 1 week she's left with $95 in her bank account. So this $95 will be contributed to potentially or hypothetically her payment or her savings in order for her to raise $3,000, which is what we have right here, in order for her to buy a car by next year. So from now until 52 weeks, which is later, she will have to multiply this number here by 52 in order for we to find out how much money she would have raised at the end of the 52 weeks. So if you multiply $95 by 52, the amount of money that she raised will be around $4,940, which is way more than the $3,000 that was expected for her to buy her car. So in here, yes, she can actually do it and even exceed that particular expectations, which means here that for her job and for her to save that money in here, in order for her to buy that car and have so much more money left to do other things, that is actually called a purchasing power. So it means that she has her purchasing power is actually great. For her to not only drive but also to save for major purchases and also contribute at home. So the more responsibilities that she does with her money, the higher her purchasing power. So that's about it for this particular long video. I hope you're able to understand this. You're going to have similar questions like this that you'll have to complete for chapter 2, and you're going to hand this in at the end of this week. So please make sure you actually understand and be able to be comfortable using all these terminologies, like for example gross pay, deductions, net pay, expenses, like for example personal expenses, and what it means to actually have a greater purchasing power. So thanks for following me through this. Truly appreciate it. You can hit me on or through my email or through the Hapara workspace or Google Meet if you have any questions. By that way, I can talk to you all soon. Stay smart and believe in yourselves.